Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fantasy Fiends podcast. I am Stevie Collier, your co-host, and I am here with Andy Peliquin, and we have some exciting news today, and that news is I'm sick. Yes, this is correct. I have a cold or the flu. I'm not sure, and I apologize that this is the second time, but don't worry. I am high off cough syrup and methamphetamines. So with that... that second part is false. Today is a very special day. We only take Tuesdays for our for special occasions, and we have the awesome Lindsay Buroker here with us today. You may have seen her on her other podcast, which is the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast, which I am a huge fan of. If you are a writer, if you haven't listened to them, you are dumb. And today we have a very interesting topic. But first, Lindsay is the author of the Balanced on the Blade's Edge Dragon Blood. That's her book 1, and it is from the Dragon Blood series. There's 8 books out. And the reason why this is important is because she is writing a new series that is in this world, and that is called Heritage of Power. And I've read the excerpt, and it is really, really good. I highly recommend it. So today, I'd like to start out what we were doing at the beginning of this show is talk about what happened this week that was cool. So did anything cool happen to any of us? Lindsay's like, I wasn't prepared for this.
I read your memo thing like a month ago.
Oh, yeah. Well, for me, I learned a really good joke. Why did the hot dog... What did the hot dog say when he crossed the finish line?
Tell us, Stevie.
I'm the wiener. Yeah.
That's bad, Stevie.
No one's laughing.
You should feel bad.
You know what? You said the same thing my girlfriend said. I was honestly, she hurt my feelings.
Too?
Huh?
She quoted Futurama too.
Yeah, no, but she did hurt my feelings by saying you should. I'm not laughing at that, Stevie. I'm not laughing at that. Okay, and Andy, anything cool happened to you this past week?
Well, I started work on outlining a new project, a new trilogy that's going to be set in my world, but in a different sort, like a different area. It's going to be military fantasy, special ops in a military context. It's really exciting. I'm having tons of fun researching. I'm right now reading about the Battle of Agincourt that both the British and the French used to win and lose, as it were, and sort of going to adapt those into the battle plan and for the characters. So it's a really fun project that I'm excited to start working on.
Holy crap, dude! You always make me feel so bad because I don't do that much research. I need to.
You looked up real historical stuff for your fantasy novel.
He does that, Lindsay.
No, that's awesome. That's good.
Like that.
I'm reading one of the foremost military historians of the 20th century named John Keegan. He did a bunch of these military nonfiction books, and they are really ponderous and they're really slow, and it's super dry because it's very cut and the facts.
Boy, oh boy.
You get the really good information, like how many men it takes to occupy 150-yard line, or how the men advance, just like the nitty-gritty of battle, been in battle before, or and has no idea how it works. It's super useful.
Yeah, I like podcasts. they're easier to listen to. I was just looking for Dan Carlin, Hardcore History. He's got some really great podcasts for inspiring things for if you're writing fantasy and want to. Because I think I tried to read a John Keegan book and I got about 3 chapters in, 3 paragraphs. I was going to say, but that might be closer to the truth. But I like to listen to stories and the history teachers or that really tell like a story, and you're just like, I was lucky enough to have a guy like that in college, and you don't realize you're actually learning something because he just, is like, there were these Sumerians, and then, obviously he was much better than I was, but, I love those people. If you can find some good lectures like that.
Yeah, what's weird that's been happening to me lately is I've been getting a lot of really cool story ideas from the Bible, because that is some harsh stuff. I mean, there's some bad stuff that goes down. Some really bad stuff. Like today, I learned that some lady boiled her baby alive and then ate it. I mean, that's a good story right there. I mean,
it'll just be like one line too.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, by the way, there was some famine and
that was it. There was a famine and a mother ate her baby. I was like, okay, where's the meaning? And there was no meaning in my eyes. I was like, how can I write this into my story? Andy, do we have a word of the day?
Sure, I've got a word that's not one of my sort of eclectic words. It's a simple one. It is engulf.
Ooh,
swallow
that's a good
up
one.
or to submerge, immerse. And so
good one.
It's an interesting word to use for, when an army is charging another one, they engulf the opposing force when there's superior numbers. Or when the waves are coming at you and they engulf you and drag you away. It's this that really has a potency that other words, surround or swallow just don't have.
Engulf, yeah, it reminds me of like being swallowed alive or something like that.
See, I was thinking engulfed by the dragon because I have dragons in my mind right now.
Very nice. So Lindsay, you want to tell us a little bit about your series?
Sure. The new one I'm working on, it was going to be a trilogy, because that's kind of the advice we give on the show. Just try a trilogy and see how it does, and make it, can always go longer if it sells like hotcakes, right? But I am not good at following my own advice. So it's now, I just finished writing book 3 and it ends on kind of a cliffhanger. I'm like, yeah, there's going to be at least 2 more books. And my beta readers were completely unsurprised. So I have 3 different series out that have made it to 8 books. So trilogies are hard. But yeah, this one's pretty fun. It's set after the Dragon Blood series that you were introducing. And it's got, it's sort of, magic was everybody was killed basically that had magic and people were afraid of it. So now it's coming around again that dragons are coming back into the world, and maybe we need some people with magic that can actually help defend us against this. And so here's a guy that he has some powers he's been trying to hide because he just wants to be a soldier in the army. These are sort of a steam age thing, so he's actually a pilot in kind of a World War I biplane type thing. And they're a lot of fun to write. I have these battles with like dragons, and if you can imagine being up there in this little open cockpit airplane trying to shoot a dragon with a machine gun. I'm sure it worked, but I don't know.
I've never heard that. That's a new take on dragons for me. I've steampunk dragon kind of like, so they're fighting dragons while in planes.
Yeah, and you're
awesome.
Slightly disadvantaged because the dragons are uber powerful, as of course they have to be.
Just a little bit. I mean, you're in a crappy World War I plane, and you got this big ass dragon following you around with fire breathing tendencies.
Yeah, you talk about doing research. I was kind of like, because in one story I had them flying to a different continent, and I was like, I wonder what happened if you had to go to the bathroom back then, because that's where my mind goes. I'm very mature.
Yeah.
But apparently there was a tube. So.
Wait, are you serious?
I guess in some of them, if you had to, or I think the guys. It said in the history that they just didn't drink that much. They're like, we're doing an Atlantic flight. We're just not going to drink so it won't be a problem. But I don't think those actually flew across the seas that often.
Bucket seats of an airplane would be like the perfect, porta potty thing. All you do is just, have a hole there and just done. It would be super simple.
Oh my God. Yeah,
it was less the guys didn't care as much. It was more the women that were along, because I had female pilots too, of course. And, girls, we like to go in comfort.
Yeah.
Can't just go over the side.
Honestly, I don't think I would have thought about that while writing, but I guess you have to think about everything when it comes to that sort of thing. Cross it. Yeah, that gives me a good story idea.
Stevie, how did the people in your battle suits, how did they use the bathroom?
They go inside their suits.
Yeah, I have that too. Well, wait, in a fantasy setting, see, I got space armor, and then you just figure there's plumbing for everything. But I don't know about fantasy lower level tech might be.
Yeah. Well, you know, Brandon Sanderson actually covers how people went to the bathroom in the shard plate, and it was like during battle. Adolin Colin says I quote, "I shat myself." Brandon Sanderson actually wrote that into
this story on the Battle of Agincourt. They were talking about how a lot of the British Army, they were suffering from diarrhea, and so they literally just shat. Where were men who had special like male leggings where the male was strapped to their leggings and they couldn't get it, undone and unbuckled, so they couldn't use the bathroom. But for the ones who could, they were just like shitting right there where they stood. So, in the Battle of Agincourt, it wasn't churned up mud that slowed the horses down. Now, there's that visual to change the way you think of that particular battle.
If you are just joining in to the Fantasy Fiends podcast, we've covered some really, really important stuff.
I'm bringing it to a whole new level. I bet you guys were not this classy with other guests.
No, I like it though. I like it. This is awesome. Already starting off to it's already starting off very well.
I mean, last week we had flying penises. So
we did.
It's just part of the podcast.
We did have that, Lindsay. Don't ask.
What better to lead into heroic traits in fantasy characters
than flying penises? So yes, that is a great transition. Thank you, Andy. So today's topic, we are talking about traits of a hero. Take it away, Andy.
Well, it's something that you could probably look up in any fantasy how-to book or any novel how-to book. Is the 10 to 20 traits that every hero needs to have. And of course, we're talking about the more typical epic fantasy, heroic fantasy heroes, not anti-heroes. So, Lindsay, what are some of the characteristics, the traits of your heroes?
Well, I tend to just kind of write the heroes that I like to read about, which is, usually they have something like this guy's going to have magic power, or they're just a total badass in some area, but in other ways they'll often be kind of the everyday man that we can connect with, and they have their flaws and their fears. But I feel like as a reader, I do want the hero to have some cool thing that I wish I could do, or even if they're just really sarcastic. I have one character like that just says whatever's on his mind, like all the things you wish you could say, but you'd get in trouble if you actually said them. But they're tough enough that they can back up their mouth. So I like a nice mix of, just human and regular guy, but with some really cool, some gift that's going to help him kill the dragons or drive out the evil army, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, some ability. But then at the same time, you also want the personality traits. Like, for example, if you've got a superpowered guy or some guy with an ability who's a total coward, nothing's ever going to happen. The battle's never going to be won. So they've got to have the courage. Let's say, courage is one of the classic traits of a hero. When all the cowards and the antagonists are retreating in face of impossible odds, it's the Aragorn character who stands tall and says, "We fight here." Like that basic courage is one of the most common traits of any hero in any fiction.
I agree, and I also want to know why. I feel like there's some reason why this guy is going to stand here and maybe give his life. So I like to get that backstory too. Like, is he protecting his mom, his children back home? What is? There's got to be some reason. I feel like that for people to have that within them.
Yeah. Another good one is like selflessness or self-sacrifice, which is selflessness is putting others' needs before your own, but then self-sacrifice is a step further, being willing to take a hit or to suffer else.
Yeah, I think these are the kinds of traits that we kind of ask ourselves, would we be like that if it was really our lives at stake? And it's an interesting question, and it's fortunate that most of us don't have to actually face that and answer it for real. But I think we do admire that, and it's something we all feel like, like there's so many turning points in history that could have gone a much worse way if there hadn't been people like that to do that.
Yeah, like I mean the battle of Thermopylae is classic. The 300 battle where they stood there and knew they were going to die, but they did it anyway because it meant protection and safety for the people behind them. And actually, when I went to the USS Midway, the battleship converted into a museum, or aircraft carrier converted into a museum, and I was scrolling through the Medal of Honors list, the all the people who'd gotten the Medal of Honor, to see if I could come up with some interesting story ideas. And it's amazing how many of these medals were given posthumously for people who had thrown themselves on a grenade, or who had gotten in the way of enemy fire to save their platoon. Like, at least 50% of the stories that I read there that day were people who had sacrificed themselves for the sake of someone else, and they deserved that Medal of Honor for being a hero.
It's oh, thank you. It's weird that you bring that up. My grandpa was in Vietnam, and the main story he told us growing up was the time his black friend, who was his best friend in the army, they were out patrolling, and a grenade plopped down by their feet, and this guy jumped on that grenade and was trying to pick it up to throw it, either let it blow up in his hand, or if he could, throw it, and it exploded. And shrapnel like covered my grandpa, and he got the Purple Heart for it, and that guy got some huge award for it, but obviously he died. And a lot of I'm lucky because my grandpa also was a squad leader, and so he did all the tactics and stuff like that. So you'll see in the book I'm writing now, Esh, the lead character, actually does some of the tactics that my grandpa did when he was going through the jungles of Vietnam. And there was some of that in the Four Territories as well. So it's funny you bring that up. Also, we're talking about the traits of a hero. The Esh, my main character in the new book, his main flaw is chronic hero syndrome. So he's so heroic that it's putting his life in danger all of the time. And his love interest is actually quickly becoming not his love interest, because she's tired of him throwing himself at every chance to be a hero. And that's like his way of wanting to be accepted by people, because he was hated for so long. And so he like throws himself out. And I actually just wrote the part today where he's tired of it. He's growing tired of it because he's in so much pain all the time, physical pain and mental. So I actually found that trait on tvtropes.com, and I was like, I gotta write that. That sounds really fun.
Hero syndrome. Yeah, well, that's the opposite of what we're talking about. That's one of the bad.
Well, you gotta cover it. I mean, I just thought it was cool. I'd never even heard of a thing like that before.
Yeah. Well, it actually kind of goes opposite to a real hero's trait is humility. In doing research for this military special ops I'm writing, I was talking with people, and they were like, the biggest difference between like the Green Berets or the Delta Force, and then the Marines, the Navy SEALs, the people who are less specialized and more general operations, is that a lot of the Navy SEALs, they will brag about, they're very vocal, and then the Green Berets and the Deltas, they're just quiet. They know what they can do, they know what they've done, and they don't need to say anything about it, because it's just not part of who they are. And that sort of humility and not bragging or being vocal or outward about it is one of the classic hero traits. The hero never says, I'm a hero. He just does what needs to be done without bothering. He's humble about it.
I agree. Because we actually get annoyed as readers, don't we, because I have characters that are kind of often the sidekick characters that are like, I'm amazing, I'm with a woman every night. Those are usually the male characters that say that, but not always. Yeah. I do have one female character who would brag about that the other way. But, and it is interesting that maybe this is the sidekick, one of the defining traits for a sidekick character. But yeah, we do expect humbleness from our heroes, and even like, sports figures and that kind of thing. We start to roll our eyes if they're just too full of themselves. So
like Mayweather is a classic example. Everybody who I talk to about Mayweather acknowledge that he is probably one of the greatest boxers ever to fight, or at least of our generation, but no one likes his personality because he's so all about himself. He's so full of himself. He's in no way a hero. Whereas his fight against Pacquiao, everyone wanted Pacquiao to win. They wanted Pacquiao, sort of a humble, quieter guy, to take down this vocal, arrogant jerk. So it's very easy to see the difference between your typical hero and your antagonist / villain.
Oh wait, who won?
Mayweather.
He did? Okay.
It was a crappy fight, and a lot of people said that Pacquiao should have gotten it, but
okay. So
we definitely like to root for the underdog too.
Yeah.
There's all those sports movies you watch as a kid where like the Bad News Bears and whoever,
Dodgeball.
We feel so good when those guys, the underdogs, win. I think maybe because we all secretly hoping that someday we're going to win. We often, it's easier to identify, probably more of us were picked on, or especially our nerdy reader types like we may possibly be.
Yeah, no, that's true.
So we like to see that person get ahead. And so it's kind of interesting. You might want them to have like a superpower or something, but at the same time, it can be really, you identify with the character also that was the underdog or that did get picked on, that got stuffed in his locker as a kid and now he's Bill Gates.
Yeah. Another really good one, and it's a very quiet, subtle one that is not as visible as the other traits, but is super important, is sort of caring. The guy who will give up bread to a kid when everyone's starving, or he'll take someone's burden who can't carry it, or who will be concerned about someone else when they're doing poorly. You've got these leaders of a team. You've got the kings, these guys who are just caring and concerned for others. That's a huge trait of a successful leader.
Reminds me of the hunter
and hero.
Your hunter does that a lot. Andy?
Yeah.
Okay, there you are. Another trait, like when I think of hero traits, and of course in fantasy, I always think of chivalry. That's my go-to trait. Even though actually I don't think I've written one character who is chivalrous. I probably need to. I think I tried, and he just turned out to be a big flirt. I just kind of embellished it a little bit, and he loves women and stuff like that. And it was bent the knee, kissed the hand, and then it went to more.
Yeah.
Hey, Lindsay, do you outline or do you pants when you write?
I started out as kind of a pantser, and I probably wrote 3 or 4 beginnings of novels that way. I'd write like 40,000 words, and then they'd get stuck, and I didn't know what happened next. And so I just kind of abandoned it and go on to the next shiny project. So I started probably I did manage to successfully complete some novels eventually by joining a workshop, and that was pretty motivating because I saw other people were waiting for the next chapter, and I'm like, I should actually finish this. But after I got serious and I self-published my first couple books, and I actually made a little money, and I thought, I need to get more out there, because at the time I didn't have this big backlist of chunk novels. Like some people were coming in with 10 novels already written, and they just put them all out there. So I was like, man, I got to get some novels out there and get a backlist. So I gradually learned to write faster, and a big part of that for me is I don't know what that was.
Uh-oh.
Some bugs are crawling on my neck.
Arizona bug.
We got big bugs down here. We got tarantulas and stuff.
Oh, God.
I don't think it was a tarantula. I'm probably safe.
Yeah.
But yes. So now I outline, just because I found that I was a lot less likely to write myself into a situation where I didn't know what happened next, or I ended up having to cut scenes, which is just a waste of time. So I don't always stick with the outline, but by doing the process and knowing how the story ends, it's just a lot easier. And I definitely if if I'm going to try to write maybe 10,000 words tomorrow, I'll think about ahead of time what those 2 or 3 scenes are and what's going to happen. So when I sit down to write, I just sit down and write. And now most of the time my rough drafts are 90-95% of the way there. And it's just kind of doing a little tinkering with words and cleaning stuff up and along the way. So I've become a fan of outlining.
How many words do you write a day?
Now if I'm doing a new rough draft, 5,000 to 10,000. I wrote like 100,000 word book in 2 weeks and edited it because I had a deadline.
Whoa.
That was crazy for me. That was, usually I'm like, I can do one in a month now, but because I have a pen name too, so I'm up to about 50 novels between me and my pen name. But this is the day job. This has been the day job for a while.
Yeah, that makes sense. Andy, your face, man, I love it. As soon as she said that, I looked down. I was like, aha, Andy. That reminds me, I have a new thing that I'm going to start doing to really screw with Andy, and that is I'm going to start saying, and we'll keep that down in the show notes, and we'll put that down in the show notes, so you have to go back and add all that stuff.
Does he write the show notes? I write the show notes for our thing. And as soon as somebody starts naming all the, like today we had somebody talking about scheduling tweets and stuff. So he's like, yeah, I use Social Oomph and I use Crowdfire. And I'm like, oh man, I got to write these down and get all the links for this stuff for the show notes.
See, you gotta put that all on Jeff.
Jeff is our chat moderator. He watches the YouTube live stream.
Oh, that's yeah. Okay,
I can. He likes that. I think he likes it. He does it anyway.
So we're talking about hero traits. When you're outlining, Lindsay, do you have character sheets already made out, or do you just write them in your?
I do use Scrivener, and I definitely make use of the character sheets because otherwise I forget too many things. Like I will never remember somebody's eye color or hair color or something like that, especially. But yeah, if I have thoughts on like what their background is, because when I'm making these guys that are going to be heroes, there's usually you have to have an interesting background that goes into that. Like you were mentioning with your guy that craves attention and wants to be a hero, usually they didn't get that. They're the 8th child or something, and it's interesting to explore why that may have come about as an adult character. So I don't always know everything when I get started. I've started recently writing the first 2 or 3 books in a series before I publish them, and that lets me kind of world build and create more depth in the characters along the way as I figure it out. And then I can go back and change or add to anything in the first book because I haven't published it yet. So that's something that, I started getting into this because the rapid release on Amazon seems to help, and stuff might stick and sell better if you can put out 3 novels quickly. But I've done it like for the last 3 or 4 series, and for those reasons, the world building and adding character details and that kind of thing, I found it really useful for me since I do that a lot of that on the fly.
In this new book that you have coming out, do you know any of the heroic traits that your MC might have?
Oh, so I've got a female lead and a male lead in it. The guy is the one that I can't give too many spoilers, but he's got these powers and he's hiding it because magic is feared in this society. So for him, he's actually, he's definitely on the humble, and he's always been a little quirky and he's not sure why. We find out as the series progresses. There's a cat wandering past behind you.
Is there? Oh yeah, that's
cameo. But so he's like, he has some hero attributes. He's really good at piloting his little airplane and shooting things. And that's, even in our society, pilots back then, that was like a real hero thing, really cool. Of course, a lot of them died. It was really dangerous. It was like, oh, there goes another one, bummer.
Yeah.
So he's good at that, and he's got because the powers are, he actually watched his mother get hung as a witch.
Holy
when
crap.
He was like 8, because that's how feared it is in the society. So he's fighting with like, I have this power and I could use it for the greater good, but if I get found out, nobody's going to talk to me. Possibly I'll get hanged. So he's got this dilemma that pretty much defines him, especially in the first book.
And what about the woman?
She's actually sort of from a noble family, had a nice, happy upbringing. She's kind of a geek, but she dreams of being like kind of our equivalent in this world of the elite troops kind of soldiers. Because there's a character from the original series that she kind of idolizes. So she's kind of this geeky character that really wants to be able to do all the, pass all the training tests and get into the program. And she's really drawn to that because where this starts, they've had all these other horrible things that happened in the first series. So that's why she wants to help her country instead of just sitting in academia and being a scholar, which is what her family is like. Why would you not do that? Why would you become a soldier? That is not You know, and so she's got to fight like them all saying that's a waste of your time, that's a waste of your intellect, and so she has to prove like, no, man, smart people can become soldiers, and we need these people fighting and figuring out how to defend our country. So that is the female lead, and possibly there will be romance along the way.
Awesome, with her and a dragon, right?
Well, we'll see what the heritage is of our hero.
Okay, I don't want you to have to give away too much.
Yeah,
that sounds really good. Sounds like you really put a lot. You put more thought into this novel than I would have. I tried the outlining thing, and I'm definitely a hybrid. I put a very thin skeleton of things I want to write about, and then I quickly deviate as I do with this podcast. I just can't. I can't stick to it. I'm just like, damn, that's a really cool idea. I want to add that into the book, and then.
Well, I do that too.
Off I go.
So, okay. Just so you know, I often, you know, and it just depends. Some of the stories, they do stick pretty close to the outline, but almost always I find things I want to add, or, you know, I've had characters where they were supposed to be like red shirts and just die, and they refuse to die, and they turned out to be these interesting characters, and then they get a side book of their own. So, you know, I definitely believe in leaving room for spontaneity and having fun and exploring it as you go.
I like how you say refuse to die, even though like we're in control of it. You quickly find out sometimes that you're not in control of the story. At least I do. I'm just like, today I was like, where the heck did she come from? You know, a female character like entered the story. I was able to kill her off though. Don't worry. So are we going to be do you guys want to transition over to the reading?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Lindsay, the way we do this is we usually have the author choose what roles she wants Andy and I to do. And you can either do a character or you can be the narrator. I prefer not to be the narrator today, even though I can talk. I know I will screw it up.
All right, let me. I didn't know I had to read, so let me see if I can find you the excerpt that I sent you guys here. All right, there it is.
It's part of the thing that we on our guests. It's going to be easy, and then we make them read. We make them perform.
A lot of authors who come on don't realize they have to read.
I've never. I don't think I've ever because I've never done a read aloud at a bookstore or anything like that.
Yeah.
And the Podium Publishing has done this book, so I'll have the head of the narrator or the voice of the real narrator in my head.
Oh, you actually have.
Once you do it, you become like super addicted to it, or I have.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
or I find out I already know that I'm a really poor reader, like read alouder.
Oh, there's another one of us out there.
Yeah.
Andy knows I'm horrible at it.
All right, like I'll do the narrator's voice.
Okay, are you wearing a Deadpool shirt?
You know it.
That's badass, man. Deadpool? You don't know who Deadpool is?
No, I just know it's not me.
Oh, Deadpool is you gotta go watch the Deadpool movie. Unless you have small children, don't watch it when they're around.
What about dogs? I have impressionable dogs.
Just cover their ears sometimes.
Okay.
You know, during the bad parts. Okay, right. Lindsay, do you want to tell me my role?
Do you want to be the sarcastic hero?
That would be me in real life anyway, so yes.
All right,
yeah,
you can be
quite appropriate.
Yeah.
There you go. You can be Ridgewalker Zerkander.
I love that name.
Who did not give himself that name. His dad gave him that name.
Colonel
you have to be a hero with a name like that, though.
Yeah, that's freaking awesome. So I'm Colonel Ridge Zerkander.
Yep.
The sarcastic hero, which is me in real life. All right.
All right, and Andy, do you want to be the General Ort? Or are you just narrating?
The narrator.
Okay, you narrate and I'm General Ort? Or I'll just be everyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's only there's like a private, I think.
Okay.
That's good. And Lindsay, just really like feel these characters, really get into the voices. The more fools we make of ourselves, the more our viewers and listeners enjoy it.
Poor Lindsay.
I always think when I listen to the audiobooks how cool it is that the narrators can actually do like all these different voices and remember them.
Yeah, I know.
I don't think I can
It's
do
tough.
that.
There's
I'm gonna
some
take a
really
drink.
It's really tough.
amazing. Is that a beer? You
It's a
getting?
peach pear LaCroix. But
He's getting.
that's my drink. Everybody on the other show has seen it.
Oh, okay. I thought we were getting turned up in here.
Beer might have helped.
Yeah.
Says the man hopped up on cough syrup.
Yeah, okay. That gave me away right there that I'm flying high right now. No. Okay. As I cough. All right. I am ready.
With no further ado, here we go.
Yes.
Colonel Ridge Zerkander had walked the hall to General Ort's office so many times he suspected his boots were responsible for the threadbare state of the drab gray carpet runner. Standing guard on either side of the door were too well trained to exchange knowing smirks. But that didn't mean gossip of this meeting wouldn't be all over the Citadel by noon. It wouldn't be the first time. Fortunately, uniforms only held awards and not demerits.
Morning, gents.
Ridge stopped before the door. He eyed the private's rifles. They had the new lever action repeating models, but neither man looked like he'd been given orders to keep visitor outs. Too bad.
How's the general's mood today?
Tense, sir.
That applies to most days, doesn't it?
He didn't expect an answer. Privates weren't encouraged to chat about officers after all. At least not where the said officers might overhear. But the younger one grinned and responded.
A week ago last Thursday, it elevated to agitated, sir.
Glad I was in the air that day, then.
Ridge thumped the fellow on the shoulder and reached for the doorknob. The private's grin widened.
We heard about the battle cruiser, sir. That was marvelous. I wish I could have seen it.
Taking down the supply ship was more of a victory for us, but I suppose that didn't come with the added excitement of being shot at by cannons.
I'd love to hear about it, sir.
The private's eyes gleamed with hope.
Might be at Ruddy's later,
Ridge said.
If the general doesn't send me down to the kitchen to chop vegetables with the recruits.
He walked in without knocking. Mounds of paperwork were heaped on General Ort's desk, but the man was gazing out the window overlooking the harbor, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. Merchant, fishing, and military vessels sailed to and from the docks, but, as always, Ridge's eye was drawn to the dragonflyers lined up on the butte on the southern end. Their sleek bronze hulls, propellers, and guns gleamed under the morning sun, beckoning him to return. His squadron was out there, overseeing maintenance and repairs, and waiting for him to bring them news. He hoped this ego-trouncing session would also include the delivery of new orders. When the general didn't turn around right away, Ridge flopped into a plush leather chair in front of the desk, flinging his leg over the armrest.
Morning, General. I got your message. What can I do for you this fine day?
Ridge nodded toward the blue sky above the harbor, a sky clear of enemy airships as well as clouds. Ort turned, his customary scowl deepening as he waved at Ridge's dangling boot.
No, have a seat. I insist.
Thank you, General. These chairs do lend themselves to lounging in comfort.
Ridge patted the soft leather.
If anyone ever succeeds in foisting an office on me, I hope it'll be furnished just as finely.
7 gods, Ridge. Every time you see me, I wonder anew how you got so many bars on your collar.
It's a mystery to me as well, sir.
Ort pushed a hand through his short gray hair, sat down, and pulled out a folder. Ridge's folder, though he had to have it memorized by now, all of its 3 inches of thickness.
You're 40 years old, Colonel. Are you ever going to grow up?
I've been told it's more likely I'll be shot down first.
Ort folded his hands across the folder without opening it.
Tell me what happened.
In regards to what, sir?
Ridge asked. He knew perfectly well, but he learned long ago not to volunteer information that might incriminate him.
You don't know?
Ort's ever-present scowl deepened until the corners of his mouth were in danger of falling off his chin.
Well, my squad's been on the ground 4 days. Could be a lot of things.
According to my report, you broke Diplomat Sarenson's nose, bruised his ribs, and threatened to rip off his penis. Any of that sound familiar?
Yes. Oh.
Ridge said, nodding.
Yes, it does. Although I believe it was his flesh pole I threatened to rip off. There were ladies present, and some find anatomically correct terms too blunt for polite company.
The general's jaw ground back and forth several times before he managed a response.
Explain.
That slimy turf kisser had cornered Lieutenant On and was groping her and trying to usher her outside. She was about to slam a fist into his face herself, but I stepped in, figuring she might not appreciate your plush leather chairs the way I do.
Actually, his ace lieutenant, who had nearly as many kills on the side of her flyer as he did this year, had been wearing the most conflicted expression, like she might have actually let Sorensen drag her outside and paw her up, since he was such an important delegate. Nobody's uniform required that kind of sacrifice.
Freya's breath, Ridge. Couldn't you have defended your officer without starting an international incident?
Possibly, but he wouldn't have found it nearly as satisfying. Besides...
International incident? We're already at war with the Kofa, and this was just a reminder why we broke away from their rule in the first place. They think they can have anything they want. Well, they can't. Not my country, and not one of my people.
Ort sighed and leaned back in his chair.
It's good to know you care beneath all your irrepressible impudence, but the king was at my throat like an attack dog this morning. This is serious, Ridge. Sorensen wants you sent to Mogroth.
Ridge snorted. His crime hadn't been that severe. Only convicts went to the Mogroth crystal mines, convicts who have otherwise been marched out to the firing squad. Very few thought the sentence of life in the mines, with no chance of parole, was an improvement. The general pulled the piece of paper out of the top of Ridge's file and laid it on the desk.
You leave in the morning.
What?
For the first time, real unease settled into the pit of his stomach. He left his blessed dragon figurine dangling in the cockpit of his flyer, but maybe he should have brought it along, or at least rubbed its belly for luck that morning.
That's not very damn funny, sir.
The general's humorless gray eyes bored into Ridge like overzealous drills.
The king agrees.
The king? The king wouldn't send him to his death. He was too valuable to the war effort. Ridge started to shake his head, but halted, realization coming as his gaze dropped to the typed sheet of paper. Orders. They weren't sending him as a criminal, but as an officer. A contingent of men guarded the secret mines, the location known only to those high up in command, and those who'd been stationed there.
You want me to guard miners, sir? That's the infantry's job, and one for a bunch of enlisted men.
Sure, there had to be a few officers there to run administration, but there couldn't possibly be a posting for a colonel.
Or are you demoting me along with this reassignment?
Ridge almost gagged on the last word. Reassigned? Him? All he knew how to do was fly and shoot. That's all he'd done since graduating from flight school. He was only vaguely aware of the location of the mines, but knew they were in the mountains, hundreds of miles from the coast, from the front lines.
Demotion? No, not a demotion. Read the orders, Ridge.
Ort smiled for the first time in the meeting, the kind of smile a bully wears after pummeling some scrawny kid.
The king and I had talked about this at great length this morning.
Ridge picked up the sheet and skimmed. Yes, a reassignment to the position. He lowered the sheet.
Fortress Commander?
I believe that's what it says, yes.
Ort was still smiling. Ridge preferred his scowl.
That's a position for a general.
Or at least someone with experience leading battalions of troops, not to mention the administration background a man should have. All Ridge had commanded were squadrons of smart, cocky officers, not unlike him. What was he supposed to do with a bunch of infantry soldiers? Not to mention the gods knew how many murdering prisoners that roamed the tunnels.
In times of war, it's not uncommon for less experienced officers to be forced to work in positions above their pay grade.
What happened to the current commander?
Ridge muttered, imagining some poor general with a miner's pickaxe driven into his forehead.
General Bockenheimer is due to retire this winter. He'll be extremely grateful to be relieved early.
I'll bet.
He stared down at the orders, his eyes blurring. The date. A 1-year assignment? Well, he was gone. Who would pilot his flyer? He'd always thought he'd been led to assume... No, people had told him, damn it. He was indispensable out there. The war wasn't over. If anything, this year had seen more fighting than any of the previous 4. To some remote, gods-forgotten outpost in the mountains.
I know this is hard for you to stomach, Ridge, but I actually believe it's for the best.
Ridge shook his head. It was all he could do. For once, he had no words, no quip with which to respond.
You're an amazing pilot, Ridge. You know that. Everybody knows that. But there's more to being an officer than shooting things. This will force you to mature as a soldier and as a man.
Ort hitched a shoulder.
Or it'll kill you.
Ridge snorted. Ort waved a hand.
You have your orders. Dismissed.
Left the chair, giving it and the harbor out the window a long look before he headed for the door. For a year. How was he going to survive?
Oh, and Colonel?
The general said as Ridge walked for the door. Ridge paused, hoping this had all been a joke designed to teach him a lesson.
Yes?
Pack warm clothes. Autumn is just about over in the mountains.
The general's smile returned.
And Mogroth is at 12,000 feet.
A lesson indeed.
Woo.
End of scene.
Awesome. That was
Go
a lot
buy
of
the
fun.
book. That is free.
Yeah. Oh, that one's free, huh?
It's totally free.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out. Actually, I'm probably gonna get it on my Kindle. I gotta say, reading that character came pretty naturally to me. I'm not too happy about that, actually. But I really like that character. I'd like to write a character. Actually, I do have a character similar to him, but I don't know. This guy seems more intelligent than the one I created. He seems more confident in his abilities, I would say.
He knows what he's good at. And
yeah.
he plays that he's not that bright, you know. I just like to fly and shoot things, but he's not dumb.
Yeah.
So he's obviously his arrogance is a little bit of a flaw. Otherwise, he's a you know, you got to have characters that are badasses, but that are also, as we were talking about, not too perfect. And his mouth gets him in trouble a lot, as you know. If you were in the army, you might remember or know people.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised he became a colonel. But
well, it's funny because I think I was very much thinking of the Air Force. I was in the Army for 4 years, and yeah, the officers definitely had it easier. But I did get the impression from my friend who's married to an Air Force guy that like if you were really good at your job, that you could get maybe a little more leeway. And if not, it's fantasy. So
yeah, that's really cool. I really, really enjoyed doing this reading. It's a character that I enjoyed doing. I feel like this was my best performance, even though I feel like crap. Or I could just be thinking I did a good job because I don't, because of the cough syrup. But
I was sadly concentrating really hard.
Were you really?
I was like, I don't want to screw it up. It's my own book. Don't mangle it.
I know that feeling all too well. So I have something kind of cool to show. I know it's not that big of a deal, especially for you, Lindsay, since you write so many words a day, but I just beat, well, I mean, it's 2 days left, but I just beat my first NaNoWriMo. So got my shirt in.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I like NaNoWriMo because it is a charity. So buying the shirt was not only, hey, you need to write every single day, but it goes to, I think they give like writing packets to children wanting to write, or it goes to their camp or something like that. So it's a really cool thing, even if you know, you write well over the 1,700 words needed to be a part of it. But before this, I was only writing about 1,000 words a day because I have a full-time job. But now NaNoWriMo has increased my stamina with writing, and I can easily get 1,700 to 2,000 words in a day, even though I get home pretty late. So
that's awesome.
It was a really good experience, even though it's like 2 days left, but I'm good. I got this in the bag.
That was good. I think I remember finding it very challenging. That was my goal starting out, was 1,000 words a day. Because the first novel, I've told the story, it took me like 7 years to finish. Not, there were long gaps in there where I wasn't working on it, but that was just my first goal, is 1,000 words a day. And I remember thinking those first couple NaNoWriMo, I was like, God, this is hard, because November is such a hard month because you have holidays and it's it's like 30 days instead of 31. So it's a challenge.
Yeah, it is. It's hard for me to imagine it being difficult for you at one time, Lindsay.
Well, see, it's interesting. You just gradually, you hear about other people that are writing more, and you're kind of like, well, shoot, I could write more. Because I think I was doing like 3,000 words when I first kind of quit to do this full time. And I remember listening to this self-publishing podcast, and those guys were doing like 6,500 words a day or something. And I was like, crap. And they were always talking about it. It was like, oh, those freaking little braggers are all, I did my 6,500 words already.
Yeah.
But then I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to see if I can do more words. And then I did like a 5,000. And then I read Rachel Aaron's 2K to 10K book. I'm like, well, shoot, if other people are doing 10K, it must be doable. So that would be hard, though, working full time. Anybody that can do that, that's awesome.
And I mean, I'm pretty sure we're all part of that Facebook group, 10 books to 20. What is it? 20 books to 50K?
20.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Yeah. So it's 20 books making 50,000 a year?
Yeah, that's kind of like, and I've talked to Joanna Penn about this on, too, that she thinks that's actually a really realistic number. Like when you get to like 20 books in your backlist, that you could potentially be making that $50,000 a year. And some of those guys, obviously Michael Anderle, just shot past that to like, oh, I think I cleared like 2 million this year. But so you can have great success, but if you get to the point where you have like a pretty good backlist, you can have a steady income from your writing. Like, because I did 6 books for my pen name recently, and so I haven't released anything under my name since April, I think. So I'm really excited to have a new launch, but because I was able to, I still had stuff I could run promos on. It's not like all my income went to zero, because I have 3 series that are complete that I'll promote the first book and run a sale and play around and try to do some things. So it's hard if you're not publishing fairly often, like 3-4 novels a year. I think is pretty reasonable. You can get some momentum and keep going. But once you get a backlist up, there's more that you can do, assuming it's not all in one series.
Doesn't that Michael guy put his name on other people's books, though?
Well, yes, he's doing that now. Well, he has people writing in his world. So he's kind of doing the James Patterson thing. Like, he approves the storylines, I believe, and the outlines and stuff, and then the other person writes the story. So it's like a collaboration thing. And then he gets royalties. But he gets a lot of money too, just from, I think he's up to like 20 books in his series. And if you go look up his books on Amazon, they're all like in the top 200 overall in the store.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So he's raking it in. And
awesome.
He was somebody that just came out of nowhere and was writing really fast and publishing really quickly and doing fun characters, that his readers liked.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, I could talk about Andy and I think I got Andy on the marketing bug, didn't I?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Andy and we could talk marketing all day. It's certainly, I got my degree in marketing, so I'm always like, trying to find the newest thing and what works, what doesn't work, stuff like that. And I read everything out there about it, especially from successful authors like you, Lindsay. So is there any closing things we want to talk about for Traits of a Hero?
No,
nothing wrong with some humor.
Yeah.
If you have a funny streak, I think humor goes a long ways. If that's something, it's not in everybody's repertoire, but if it comes naturally to you, I feel like that's a lot of the reason a lot of people like my characters is for the dialogue and the humor. And it's funny to me when I meet people in person, they're really funny. And then their stories, there's no humor in them whatsoever. So I don't know if that's just a thing that some people have more of a knack for than others, but I love like the heroes. Like I love Mal and Firefly, when he just like kicks the guy into the, how like the noble thing to do would be like you can go back to your master and become an enemy for the next 10 years. But no, he's like, I'm just going to kick you into the thruster and kill you.
Well, I think of Skylord from Guardians of the Galaxy, and I totally think humor can be a heroic trait, because I think it goes to finding the silver lining in a bad situation. maybe so. So I mean, that guy's a total hero in my book, and he's hilarious.
I need to watch the second one still.
Oh man, I liked it. I liked it. Yeah. I didn't like it as much as the first one, but I liked it. Definitely a Guardians of the Galaxies movie for sure. I think Andy, you watched it too. We talked about it on the show.
Yeah,
Dancing
I
Group.
love the Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah.
Okay, so Lindsay, where can people find you?
All right, well, lindsayburoker.com, and if you get even close in Google, you'll probably come to my site because I think I'm the only one. So, and Lindsay on Amazon, and most of my books are everywhere. Mm-hmm. So, if you like if you're an author and like the marketing stuff, we have the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing podcast. And you don't have to be sci-fi and fantasy. Most of the stuff we talk about is for any genre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like y'all talked about lit RPG, and I have a lit RPG coming out. I'm a little upset that it got so popular because I thought it was
funny. They're all over the place now.
I know, but it's not fair because I know a lot of those authors don't play games. They don't play MMOs, but I do. So I'm just like, and you can tell if an author hasn't been playing MMOs before or hasn't played them before.
Yeah, I thought about it. Somebody was telling me. Oh, somebody was telling me to do like a crafting one because that's what I used to do in World of Warcraft. I was like, let me get to 300 engineering skills so I can make the goggles that do the thing. And
oh yeah, mechanical squirrels.
I loved my mechanical squirrel, and I think I got to level 80 before I quit, just so I could have the flying gyrocopter. Maybe that was level 70. I don't remember. I quit a while ago, but and somebody was saying that so now in the RPG, maybe you could find a new niche like that. It was appealed to the people that loved all the crafting or whatever, and
I'd be one of them,
leveling up your fletching skill.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts of a lit RPG I just read, and it was he crafted the first cigarette in the game, and I thought it was fascinating because he went over the economics of it. And anyway, I could go on a tangent off on this kind of stuff forever. All right, so Lindsay, before you leave, can I ask you a few questions off air too?
Okay.
They're just really short. Anyways, Andy, who do we have next this Thursday?
On Thursday, we have RJ Batla, who writes this interesting mix of sort of Avatar: The Last Airbender meets Dungeons and Dragons. It was a really interesting story. I read it and I gave it a 5-star review because I enjoyed the heck out of it, or 4.5 stars.
Awesome. Oh, on Goodreads? Or can you do 4.5 on Amazon?
No, I gave it 4.5 on my blog.
Oh, okay. Sorry. All right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast. Lindsay, thank you so much for being on air. And, of course, we wish you the best of luck with your new series, Heritage of Power. We'd love to have you on the air again whenever it releases so we can talk more about it and maybe do a reading of that if you're interested.
All right. I'll find you somebody. I have a character in there that's always making her own cigars, so...
Well,
we can highlight her.
That'd be perfect. And just if you're watching, I am not a smoker. Just to let you all know, I do meth. I don't smoke. I'm not. No. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you're on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. That helps us out tremendously. If you are listening to the podcast, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. Like Lindsay said, if you want to listen to another awesome fantasy sci-fi podcast about marketing, go and hit up her podcast. That's Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast. Thanks again, guys, and we will see y'all this Thursday. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks for having me, guys.